The afternoon sun beat down on the cracked pavement of Fifth Street, casting harsh shadows between the towering buildings that lined the busy downtown corridor. Car horns blared in rhythmic chaos. Exhaust fumes mingled with the smell of street vendor, hot dogs and stale garbage from overflowing bins. Hundreds of feet shuffled past in an endless stream. Polished leather shoes, worn sneakers, high heels clicking with purpose. Everyone had somewhere to be. Everyone had something more important to do. No one noticed the little girl. She sat huddled against the cold brick wall of a shuttered storefront, her small frame almost disappearing into the shadows. Her name was Maya, though no one had asked. She was 7 years old, with tangled dark hair that fell past her shoulders in matted waves, and eyes the color of warm honey that had long ago learned not to expect kindness. Her clothes, a faded pink jacket, 2 sizes too small, and jeans with holes at both knees hung on her thin body like borrowed costumes. From a life that no longer belonged to her, in her lap she clutched a small cardboard sign. The words, written in careful child's handwriting with a dying marker, read, "Please help, hungry." Maya's fingers trembled as she held it, not from the cold, but from the vulnerability of asking, of being seen, of hoping that maybe, just maybe, someone would notice she existed. Sit back and relax, because what happens next will absolutely melt your heart. The lunch rush was in full swing. Businessmen in pressed suits strode past without a glance. A woman in yoga pants clutching a green smoothie sidestepped Maya as if she were just another piece of urban furniture. A couple laughed together, their hands intertwined, their eyes only for each other. An elderly man approached, slowing his pace. For just a moment, his eyes met Maya's. She saw something flicker there, recognition, maybe sympathy. Her heart lifted slightly. But then his gaze dropped to the pavement and he shuffled past. His shoulders hunched as if carrying weight he couldn't share. Maya had learned not to make eye contact after that. Eye contact made people uncomfortable. Eye contact made them angry. So she kept her head down, her sign visible, her hope a quiet whisper in her chest that grew fainter with each passing hour. She had been on the streets for 3 weeks now. 3 weeks since her mother had disappeared, gone to fix things, she'd said, promising to return by morning. That morning had never come. Maya had waited at the shelter until they told her she couldn't stay anymore. Not without a parent. She'd waited at their old apartment until the new tenants had the locks changed. She'd waited and waited until waiting became her new way of life. The morning had been quiet. A few people had dropped coins into the small cup she'd found in an alley, 17 cents so far. Enough for nothing. Not enough for the cheapest item on any menu. But Maya had whispered thank you each time, her voice barely audible above the city's roar, because her mother had taught her manners, and manners were one of the few things she had left. Then they appeared, 4 of them walking in a pack, their laughter cutting through the street noise like breaking glass. Teenagers, maybe 14 or 15, with the kind of swagger that comes from never having been truly afraid. 3 boys and 1 girl, all wearing expensive sneakers and designer hoodies that cost more than Maya's family had spent on food in a month. The tallest one, a boy with bleached tips in his hair and a cruel twist to his mouth, spotted her first. "Yo, check it out," he called to his friends, pointing directly at Maya. "Little beggar girl's got a whole setup here." Maya's stomach tightened. She pulled her knees closer to her chest, making herself smaller, hoping they would lose interest and move on. But hope, she was learning, was a dangerous thing to hold on to. They circled around her like wolves approaching wounded prey. "What's wrong? Cat got your tongue?" the girl mocked, crouching down to Maya's eye level. Her perfume was overpowering, something expensive and floral that made Maya's nose wrinkle. "Please," Maya whispered, her voice cracking. "I'm not bothering anyone." "You're bothering me," the tall one, clearly the ringleader, sneered. He kicked at her cardboard sign, sending it fluttering across the pavement. "This whole street smells like trash because of people like you." Maya scrambled to retrieve her sign, but the girl stomped on it with her pristine white sneaker, tearing it down the middle. "Oops," she said, her lips curling into a smile that held no warmth. The small cup with Maya's 17 cents was next. The ringleader picked it up, examining it with exaggerated interest. "Wow, 17 cents. You're really raking it in, aren't you?" He turned the cup upside down, letting the coins clatter to the ground and roll into a nearby grate. Laughter erupted from the group, sharp and merciless. Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Not in front of them. Tears were entertainment for people like this. Tears gave them power. The ringleader grabbed Maya's jacket, pulling her roughly to her feet. She stumbled, her worn shoes slipping on the pavement. "Stand up when I'm talking to you," he demanded. Around them, the river of pedestrians continued to flow. A mother pulling her child along actively tugged her daughter to the other side of the walkway, whispering urgently. Business people walked faster, their phone conversations suddenly more urgent. No one stopped. No one said a word. "Let go," Maya said, surprised by the steadiness in her own voice. Fear coursed through her veins like ice water. But beneath it, something else stirred. Something that remembered she was a person. Something that remembered her mother telling her she was brave. She was strong, she mattered. The girl reached for Maya's hair, fingers poised to pull, when suddenly her hand froze in midair. "When what?" The voice came from behind them, deep and calm, carrying the weight of absolute authority. It cut through the teenager's laughter like a knife through paper, immediate and undeniable. The group spun around. A policeman stood less than 6 feet away, his arms crossed over his broad chest, his face an unreadable mask of controlled composure. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with close-cropped hair graying at the temples and eyes that seemed to see everything at once. His uniform was crisp, his badge catching the afternoon sunlight, but it was his presence that commanded attention. He radiated the kind of quiet power that didn't need to be loud to be heard. His name tag read Officer Daniels. "I said," Officer Daniels repeated, his voice never rising above conversational level. "When what? Please continue. I'm fascinated to hear how this sentence ends." The teenagers stood frozen, their bravado evaporating like water on hot concrete. The ringleader's hand fell away from Maya's jacket. The girl took a step backward. The boy with the phone quickly shoved it into his pocket. "We weren't doing anything," the ringleader stammered. "Just talking." "Talking," Officer Daniels repeated, taking a single step forward. That one step spoke volumes, measured, deliberate, loaded with implication. His eyes swept over the scene, with the precision of someone trained to notice details. The torn cardboard sign, the scattered coins glinting in the grate, Maya's jacket still bunched from being grabbed, the small girl herself pressed against the wall, her body language screaming fear and resignation in equal measure. "How long have you been standing there?" the girl asked, her voice higher than before, stripped of its earlier confidence. "Long enough." Officer Daniels moved to stand beside Maya, not touching her, but positioning himself between her and the teenagers, a human shield of authority. "Long enough to watch 4 people who should know better tormenting a child who can't defend herself." The honesty in his words landed like physical blows. The teenagers shifted uncomfortably. "We were just messing around," one of the boys mumbled. Officer Daniels' expression didn't change. "When you mess around with your friends, do they look terrified? Do they cower against walls?" He paused, letting the questions hang in the air. "Or is messing around something you only do with people who can't fight back?" Silence. The city continued its symphony around them. Cars honking, people chattering. Somewhere a siren wailed in the distance, but in this small circle of cracked pavement, the quiet was deafening. "Here's what's going to happen now," Officer Daniels said, his tone shifting from philosophical to practical. "Each of you is going to empty your pockets, wallets, purses, whatever you've got. You're going to take out whatever cash you're carrying, and you're going to put it in my hand." "That's theft," the girl protested weakly. Officer Daniels raised an eyebrow. "You want to talk to me about theft? After you destroyed this child's sign and dumped her money down a drain? Please, let's have that conversation. I'd love to call your parents down to the station." Should I make those calls? The fight went out of them immediately. One by one, they pulled out their wallets. Designer leather stuffed with bills. They handed over their cash with trembling fingers. 20 here, 40 there. A $50 bill that one boy clearly hadn't wanted to part with. Officer Daniels collected it all without counting, then turned to Maya. She was still pressed against the wall, watching the scene unfold with wide eyes that couldn't quite believe what they were seeing. "This is yours now," he said gently, kneeling down to her level so they could speak eye to eye. He held out the money, at least $150. Not because they're kind, but because actions have consequences, and they're learning that today. Maya's hands shook as she reached for the bills. It was more money than she'd seen in months. Maybe enough for food, maybe enough for a safe place to sleep for a night or two. "Thank you," she whispered. Officer Daniels smiled for the first time, and it transformed his entire face from stern authority to genuine warmth. "You're welcome, sweetheart. But we're not done yet." He stood, turning back to the teenagers. "Now you four are going to apologize. A real one. The kind that acknowledges what you did was wrong." The silence stretched for a long moment. Finally, the ringleader spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry. That was messed up. I don't know why I'm sorry." It wasn't eloquent, but it was real. The shame in his voice was genuine. One by one, the others followed. Mumbled apologies, awkward and uncomfortable, but sincere in their discomfort. They couldn't meet Maya's eyes. "Now here's the rest," Officer Daniels said. "You're each going to volunteer at a homeless shelter for the next month. You're going to see people like Maya, people struggling, people who need help, and you're going to serve them with respect. And before you even think about not doing it, know that I'm going to check. I'm going to follow up. And if I find out you didn't, we're going to have a much less pleasant conversation involving your parents, school administrators, and potentially juvenile court." Their faces showed they believed him. "Can we go?" the girl asked quietly. "You can go," Officer Daniels confirmed. "But before you do, look at her. Actually look at her." They lifted their eyes to Maya, really seeing her for the first time. A small girl with 2 big eyes and 2 small clothes, clutching money that could mean the difference between eating and starving. A child alone in a city that had forgotten how to care. Whatever they saw in that moment changed something. Their faces shifted, from shame to recognition to something approaching empathy. "Go on," Officer Daniels said. They left without another word, their earlier swagger completely absent, walking like people carrying new weight on their shoulders. When they were gone, Officer Daniels turned his full attention to Maya. He lowered himself to sit on the pavement beside her, his back against the same wall, unofficial and approachable. "You okay?" he asked. Maya nodded, but tears were finally sliding down her cheeks now that the danger had passed. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving exhaustion in its wake. "It's okay to cry," he said gently. "What they did was wrong. You didn't deserve it." "Nobody helped," Maya said, her voice breaking. "All those people and nobody." "I know." The sadness in his voice was ancient and deep. "I know, and I'm sorry." He pulled a handkerchief from his pocket, old-fashioned, clean, pressed, and handed it to her. Maya wiped her eyes, the simple kindness of the gesture almost overwhelming. "Where's your family?" he asked. "Your parents?" Maya's throat tightened. "My mom. She left to fix something. She said she'd come back, but..." She couldn't finish the sentence. Officer Daniels nodded slowly, understanding, filling in the blanks. "How long have you been out here alone?" 3 weeks. He closed his eyes briefly, pain flickering across his features. 3 weeks. "And you're what, 7? 7. Okay, here's what's going to happen. First, we're going to get you some food. Real food. Then we're going to find you somewhere safe to sleep tonight, somewhere warm and clean. And then tomorrow we're going to figure out a real solution. Does that sound okay?" Maya stared at him, searching his face for the catch, for the moment when this kindness would reveal itself as another cruel joke. But all she found was sincerity. "Why are you helping me?" she asked. Officer Daniels was quiet for a moment, considering his answer. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of personal history. "Because when I was 9 years old, I was where you are. Different city, different circumstances, but the same fundamental problem, alone, scared, invisible. A teacher noticed and helped me find my way to my grandmother, who took me in. That teacher changed my entire life." He looked at Maya directly. "I became a cop because I wanted to be someone who helps. Someone who steps in. I can't walk past you any more than I could walk past my younger self." "Does that make sense?" Maya nodded, fresh tears spilling over. But these were different tears, not from fear or pain, but from relief. From being seen, from mattering. "Come on," Officer Daniels said, standing and offering his hand. "Let's get you that food." Maya took his hand, her small fingers disappearing into his larger palm, and let him pull her to her feet. They walked together down the same street where, moments before, she'd been completely alone. But now everything was different. Heads turned, not with pity or disgust, but with curiosity and, in some faces, approval. The sight of a uniformed officer walking, hand in hand with a homeless child sent a message that couldn't be ignored. This child matters. Officer Daniels led her to a small diner 3 blocks away. The kind of place with red vinyl booths and a counter lined with chrome stools. The smells that greeted them when he pushed open the door made Maya's stomach clench with hunger. Bacon, coffee, fresh bread, something sweet and cinnamon. "Hey, Marcus," the woman behind the counter called out. She was in her 50s, with graying hair pulled back in a bun and a smile that reached her eyes. "Usual booth?" "Please, Carmen," Officer Daniels replied. "And we're hungry today." Carmen's gaze fell on Maya and something shifted in her expression. Recognition, understanding, compassion. "Baby, you come sit right down and tell Carmen what sounds good." They slid into a booth by the window. Officer Daniels handed Maya a menu, but the words swam before her eyes. She couldn't remember the last time she'd ordered from a menu. "How about this?" Officer Daniels said, sensing her paralysis. "Carmen makes the best pancakes in the city. She also makes eggs and bacon and toast and hash browns. What if we got some of everything and you eat whatever sounds good?" Maya nodded, grateful. When the food arrived, it came in portions that seemed impossible. Stacks of golden pancakes, scrambled eggs piled high, crispy bacon, toast with butter melting into every pore. Carmen set it down with a wink. "You eat as much as you want, honey. And if you want more, you just say the word." Maya ate slowly at first, then faster as her body remembered what it was to be full. Officer Daniels watched her with a sad smile, eating his own meal quietly, not making her feel self-conscious about her hunger. Between bites, they talked. Officer Daniels asked gentle questions about her mother, about school, about the things she liked to do before life had turned upside down. Maya told him about her favorite book, Charlotte's Web, about how she used to have a stuffed rabbit named Mr. Hoppy, about how her mom worked 2 jobs and was always tired but always tried to smile. "She tried so hard," Maya said, her voice small. "I know she did. I don't think she meant to leave me." "I'm sure she didn't," Officer Daniels agreed. "Sometimes adults face problems that feel too big to handle. That doesn't mean you deserve to be left. That doesn't mean any of this is your fault." When Maya couldn't eat another bite, Officer Daniels asked Carmen to pack up the leftovers. "For later," he explained to Maya, "when you get hungry again." They left the diner with Maya carrying a bag of food and Officer Daniels, making phone calls on his radio. He was coordinating, arranging, pulling strings. "I've got a friend who runs a safe house for kids in situations like yours," he explained as they walked. "It's not a traditional shelter, it's smaller, more like a home. She's got space tonight and she's expecting us. You'll have your own bed, your own space. And tomorrow, we'll start working with social services to find your mom or, if we can't, to find you a more permanent placement." "A foster home?" Maya asked, fear creeping back into her voice. "Maybe," Officer Daniels said honestly. "But a good one. I know people. I'll make sure you're somewhere safe. I'm not just going to drop you off and disappear. Maya, I'm going to follow through. That's a promise." The safe house was in a quieter neighborhood, a 2-story home with a porch swing and flower boxes in the windows. A woman named Sarah answered the door, young, warm with kind eyes and a gentle voice. "You must be Maya," she said, crouching down. "Officer Daniels told me you might need a place to stay. We've got a room all ready for you if you'd like to see it." Maya looked up at Officer Daniels, seeking reassurance. "It's okay," he said softly. "Sarah's good people, and I'll be back to check on you tomorrow, I promise." The room Sarah showed her was small but clean, with a bed covered in a soft blue comforter, a nightstand with a lamp, and even a few stuffed animals arranged on the pillow. It was more than Maya had dared hope for. "This is mine?" she whispered. "Tonight it is," Sarah confirmed. "And we'll see about tomorrow and the day after that. But tonight, you're safe and warm and cared for." Officer Daniels knelt down one more time, bringing himself to Maya's eye level. "You're going to be okay," he said. "What happened today was terrible, but it doesn't define you. You're strong, Maya, stronger than you know. And now you have people looking out for you." "Thank you," Maya said, and then impulsively threw her arms around his neck in a fierce hug. Officer Daniels hugged her back, his large arms gentle around her small frame. "You're welcome, sweetheart. Thank you for being brave enough to keep going." When he left, Maya stood at the window watching his patrol car pull away, the bag of leftover food clutched in her hands, tears streaming down her face, but for the first time in weeks, they were tears of relief and gratitude. That night, She slept in a real bed for the first time in 3 weeks. She slept deeply, dreamlessly, the kind of sleep that comes when you're finally truly safe. 3 months later, the classroom was bright and cheerful, decorated with student artwork and motivational posters. Maya sat at a desk in the third row, a new notebook open in front of her, a pencil clutched in her hand. She was writing a story for English class, her tongue poking out slightly in concentration. Her hair was clean and neatly braided. She wore jeans that fit, and a purple sweater that was actually hers, not borrowed or found. On her feet were sneakers, not expensive designer ones, but new, comfortable in her size. The social workers had found her mother 2 weeks after that day on 5th Street. She'd been in a hospital, struggling with mental health issues she'd been too ashamed to talk about. With treatment and support, she was getting better. The reunification process was slow but steady. In the meantime, Maya lived with a foster family, the Petersons, who had 2 kids of their own and a golden retriever who slept at the foot of Maya's bed every night. They were kind. They were patient. They made sure she had breakfast every morning and helped with homework every evening. And every Saturday, without fail, Officer Daniels came to visit. He'd pick Maya up and they'd go to the diner, where Carmen would serve them pancakes and ask about Maya's week. Sometimes they'd go to the park afterward. Sometimes they'd just talk. He'd become something like an uncle, a steady, reliable presence who'd kept his promise to follow through. "How's school?" he'd ask. "Good," Maya would say. "I'm reading Charlotte's Web again. It's still my favorite." Officer Daniels had even tracked down those 4 teenagers. True to his word, he'd followed up. They'd completed their volunteer hours at the shelter and kept going. The ringleader, a boy named Tyler, had written Maya a letter, a real apology that went deep, that showed he'd actually thought about what he'd done and why it was wrong. Maya had written back. It was awkward, but it was real. One moment of intervention had created waves that reached farther than anyone could have imagined. But for Maya, the impact was simple and profound. She'd learned that even in the darkest moments, kindness could still exist, that invisibility wasn't permanent, that her life had value and meaning, even when the world tried to tell her otherwise. She'd learned that one person who cares can change everything. As the sun set on the city that had once seemed so cold and uncaring, Maya packed up her school supplies and headed out to where Mrs. Peterson was waiting to drive her. Home, home, a word that meant something again. She didn't often think about that day on 5th Street anymore. When she did, she didn't dwell on the cruelty. She thought about what came after. The intervention, the choice one person made to step in when no one else would. And somewhere across the city, Officer Daniels was finishing his shift, checking on other people who needed help, being the person who sees when others look away, because that's what heroes do. They don't wear capes or seek recognition. They simply show up. They step in. They refuse to let cruelty go unchallenged. They remember that every person matters, especially those the world tries hardest to forget. Think about the people you might be walking past today, the ones struggling in silence. You have the power to step in when others step back. If this story moved you, share it and comment below. Your voice matters.